Hello and welcome back to Granted Gardens. Today we're going to do a little mix of harvesting in the garden, but we're going to spend most of our time, I think, here in the herb bed. So a couple weeks ago I mentioned to you guys that I wanted to do a video on how I harvest my herbs. This bed right here is our herb bed, and this was a dream a long time ago that I had never really fully ever expected would come to light. Man, I think it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago now. Tyler had dug out the space. He had put down like a mixture of proper soil and sand, and we started planting herbs here in this herb bed. Initially, the game plan was to have perennials in the back and have annuals in the front. Over the years, we have added to this, and quite frankly, a lot of stuff has just started coming back on its own. So today I'm going to show you guys what we have growing in here, and kind of talk to you a little bit about what has come back by itself here in Zone 7A Maryland, versus some of the stuff that we planted new. And I'm going to share with you guys how I harvest and dry my herbs. When I started the herb bed, in my head I wanted to have easy access to the majority of herbs that we like to use when we cook. That was really my initial go-to. Later into it, I kind of got into the whole concept of making my own tea mixes. So we have in here some incorporated some herbs that we cook with versus stuff that I use for teas, and then just some fun stuff that I've come along the way and just kind of thrown in here. But I will start out in one section and kind of move our way around. I've got my basket here with just a few of my tools. So first and foremost, I've got shears. They look dirty, but I actually did go ahead and take rubbing alcohol to these. You want to make sure that you keep your shears nice and clean, just in case you had previously cut anything that was sick or diseased, you're not passing it on. A way that I do that is I just take a little cotton ball here, dip it in rubbing alcohol, and then just wipe the blades as I cut. I have one of my little vases here because I'll show you guys one of my favorite little centerpieces that I put together probably about once a week, and what I do with that. So I'll show you guys that there in a second. And then I've got another jar here just in case I collect some little things, which we're going to do here in a second, and my basket for the big stuff. So first we're going to start off here with this plant that looks extremely dead. This is actually cilantro that was cilantro earlier in the year. For those of you that aren't familiar, cilantro will be a plant that goes great on any kind of Mexican foods. Then it'll bolt and it'll go to seed, and then it'll die off kind of looking like this. The seeds here are actually a cooking spice. So once they go to seed and they turn to this is called coriander. This is something that you can cook with. So I'm going to go ahead and collect these seeds. I'm going to save some to reseed next year and save some more for cooking. So here is my coriander haul. Not bad at all. That'll definitely top off our spice jar, which is the entire point. And then just for good sake, I'm gonna take a little pinch here. And I'm gonna sprinkle these guys in. Maybe we'll get lucky for next year. Moving in just a little bit, this next massive dead bush here is actually my chamomile. So this is what I like to use in my teas. It's obviously like fairly dead at this point, so there's a couple things here that I can pick to add to my tea collection. I'll just go ahead, I'll pick the little heads off here, and then I will dry them out and add them to my collection for me to use as tea over the winter. But obviously there's not much here, so this guy's just gonna come out. Now chamomile does not overwinter here. Like I said, we're in Zone 7A Maryland. It does not overwinter here. However, I guess it reseeds itself because I've had a couple kind of come back every single year. Same concept with the cilantro. I've had cilantro come back on its own, volunteer. This year we had some. but that's just from the seeds falling and reseeding themselves. It's not from the plant overwintering. Moving over here to the next one, this is Marjoram. So this is a plant that does overwinter just fine in our zone. So this one is one that I've been picking from. I've picked from this twice so far this year and dried quite a bit. But you can pretty much take this, you can hack this down and it'll pop right back. It comes back really, really easily, really nicely every single time. And like I said, it comes back year after year. The plant will die off a little bit in the fall, winter time, but then it'll just rebloom on its own in the spring. All right, so how I harvest my marjoram is going to be very similar to how I harvest a lot of my other similar plants like oregano. Essentially what you want to do is you want to take off the tops. So for this example right here, we'll use the stem. You can see that once it gets down here, it kind of splits, and then it's got a sister side right here, and then it goes down to the root, the main stem here. You don't want to cut all the way to the bottom. You don't want to cut to the main stem. Here what you want to do is look for this particular branch. You're going to go down to the second set of leaves. You can see how the leaves kind of spear off like little arms here. You want to go down to the second set of leaves. So this would be the first set, this would be the second set. And if you can look really closely in this second set, you can see that there's actually two sets of leaves. There's two big ones on the outside, and then right here in the little joint, you can see there's another set of baby tiny leaves. Those little baby tiny leaves, if you cut right above them, those will turn into two separate arms the way that these did, okay? So I'm gonna take my shears, I'm gonna go 1, 2 to the second set of leaves, and I'm gonna snip right above that second set of leaves. Then you have this stem that you can go ahead and dry to use for cooking. So as you can see, I definitely went through and hacked this off. It's hard to tell, but I definitely hacked this down quite a bit. I took it down to about half. A good rule of thumb if you're really nervous about just like hacking away at your herbs is to always take a third if you're really nervous, especially if it's your first year of growing something and you're not really sure how well it takes to being harvested. You can just take a third to start with and just see how your plant bounces back. I know these guys are not gonna have a problem. I have done more damage on them than this in the past, and they have come back just fine, so I'm not worried about my marjoram. But I do have a nice basket full of marjoram here for us to dry and use. Pretty packed. All right, so moving from the marjoram here, this is purple flower yarrow. It's obviously dying, the flowers are dying off a bit, but you can see the color varieties that you get. Usually they're this dark purple and then they get lighter as they get older. Yarrow has a ton of medicinal purposes. I don't dry it because this stuff comes back regularly every year and we have an abundance of it. I have dried it before in the past, but I don't know. I guess like I don't use a ton of yarrow, and so usually when I do need it, it's available. Last year we had yarrow growing along the fence line of the big garden, and we had so much it took over. I could not even walk through the walkways, so we ended up tearing all of that out this year. So right now this is pretty much the amount of yarrow that we have. I do have another one on the other side of this bed, but when I need it, it's usually fairly available. I don't usually dry it, but I should probably look into using it for a salve or something because we've got plenty. And here, this is one of Tyler's sage that he planted. I like to dry this and use it for like incense purposes. We do have a pretty cool sage project coming up here soon, but that's a secret. And I'm not sure when we're gonna have it up, but it's gonna be pretty cool. So this is one of our sage. It's really beautiful. I love that it's got like a purplish tint to it. All right, moving around to this side, this is my oregano. So my oregano is pretty stellar. I too have hacked at this one and taken it down to virtually nothing, and you can tell like it did not have a problem. It just came right back. So the oregano, you can harvest the exact same way that you harvest the marjoram. You would just, let me see if I can find an example here. You would just find a stem, go down to the last two. So there's one set of leaves, there's the second set of leaves, and you would just clip right above that second set of leaves. So you'd have quite a bit here on this stem. So the reason why you want to go to that second set of leaves is because you want to have enough life there, you want to have enough growth there for it to rejuvenate itself, to bring itself back. If you just went down to like the bare root, like if you took it right down to the base of the plant and all there was a stub, there's no leaves left for it to be able to photosynthesize, and it might not come back. So leaving that two set of leaves rule is what's going to make sure that it's going to come back for you. Now the herb bed, I think, is a necessity. What used to be just kind of like a dream and something I always kind of wanted because I thought it would be fun has become a necessity. We use this herb bed more than we use any of the other gardens. Like, we literally are out here every single day. There's so much that you can do with a variety of herbs, not to mention, you know, obviously spicing up foods and making your foods taste better. It's also a healthier version than just slopping it in sauce. I'm a sauce person, but it's a lot less calories, a lot better for you to just use fresh herbs. But also you can do all kinds of stuff with it. You can do teas, you can do incense, you can do your own essential oils, which I have a video, an amateur version video of how to make your own essential oils that I posted quite a few years ago. It is not pretty, I'll be honest with you guys, but I mean, it got to the point. But we actually are going to be doing a new how to make your own essential oils video here coming up shortly. So make sure you keep your eyes out for that. All right, moving along here, we've got more yarrow. This is a white yarrow. I don't know what this one, I always forget the name of this one. Oh no. I don't know, it's not gonna come to me at the moment. This is our lemon balm, which I've got quite a few of these in the garden this year. I used to only have one, but honestly I use it so often. Number one, it's gonna be my favorite for teas. I love lemon balm teas. It's my second favorite aside from chamomile. So I'll just go ahead and I'll, you know, pick from this and dry it out and just use it for tea. Or I also make honey medicine with it, which is absolutely delicious, a tea additive. Right here is my little tiny bay plant, which he's still trucking along, not as big as I'd like him to be. This is a variegated basil, which I just thought was pretty, so I added this year. I bought that one. We've obviously got our dill here, which we are getting visitors to. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You stink. So I don't know, these guys might need to move. And then over here is a new favorite. This is holy basil, which smells stellar. You don't even have to be within 3 feet and you can smell this plant. It smells so, so, so good. All right, we gotta get a little deeper in here to see. So this is my rosemary. Rosemary is another one of my favorite herbs. We put it in virtually everything. This bush is probably about 3 years old at this point. It's gotten massive. Rosemary is a very easy thing to harvest as well. Again, you just don't want to go all the way down to the base of the plant. So when you're harvesting rosemary, the key to look for is you can see how the center stalk here of the rosemary is green, and then as you get lower it starts to turn to like a brownish, and then it gets to like a very dark brown / purplish color. You only want to take off the green part, the new growth, okay? So if we were cutting this piece right here, we would want to cut about right there, right before it starts to turn brown. So again, the reason for you making sure that you only take the new growth, the green stuff, is because you want to make sure you leave enough there for your plant to grow back. Again, we are in 7A, Maryland. Our rosemary comes back every single year. What else that's really cool about rosemary, and the reason why I was so dead set on growing it, was because for Christmas one year I wanted to add it to special drinks for the holidays. And when I went to the grocery store, they were entirely sold out, because rosemary is one of those things that our grocery store does not stock regularly. It does not carry a bunch of, and you'll spend like $5 for like 2 sprigs. So now we've got plenty of rosemary. I've got some in this garden, I've got some over at the big garden, and what's really great about it is that here it not only overwinters in zone 7A, but it's like it can tolerate cooler weather. So our rosemary I can pick from fresh like well through December. It doesn't really die back until like things really freeze over. So it's neat to be able to cook, you know, in the winter time and still come out and utilize the herb garden. All right, I do have a nasturtium in here. You can see he's kind of been hidden. This is a Salvia plant, which is dying back. This was a fun little ad this year. I don't really know much about this plant, but yeah. So it says herb curry, okay? So I understand that it's not like actually a curry plant. I get that, but it smells just like curry. I mean, it's really cool. It's a really cool plant. So I don't know. I got it from the store and I just had to do it this year. Yeah, it smells like curry. It's so crazy. It's like pungent too. It's really cool. I haven't used it. I don't really know how to use it, but it smells cool. So I added it to my garden. Okay, and while we're sitting here, I feel obligated to mention my sage. This is probably like my favorite part of this garden. I hate to say it. I just think it's so pretty and I just love it, and it's just gotten so massive. Okay, so we do cook with sage, obviously, occasionally, not quite as often. But what I usually love to use my sage for is I'll dry it out and use it as like incense. But I recently have started doing something different with it that I really love, and it's using it as like a table setting, as like a flower arrangement for a week before I start to dry it out. So when harvesting sage, let me see if I can find one that's easy for you guys to see. So we'll start with the stalk here. You can see it's got all kinds of sets of leaves on it. And then the base here kind of goes down and joins the rest of the base here with the plant. So it kind of looks more like a bush. It kind of works more like a bush than it does some of the other herbs. So what I do is I'll just come in and I'll just clip like right here at the very base here of the sage. And essentially the idea here is that the more that you pick from it, the more that it's going to grow. It's going to grow bigger, it's going to grow bushier. So it does not mind being harvested at all. So typically when I'm cutting my sage, I try to start at like where it's going over the walkways. I don't usually harvest from like the center of the plant unless I need to. I have this bumblebee that's like getting ready to land on me. I'll try and cut from where the walkways are just to make sure that that clears out, but I'll show you guys my little flower arrangements that I do. All right, so I tried to cut, I still have a ton that could go, but I try to cut from the walkway a little bit to keep it clear. All right, so I've got my little vase here. What I do with my sage is that I'll pull off the bottom leaves. If the bottom leaves are still on, then they tend to get a little wonky, a little funky in the water, and your water goes bad a lot quicker. So I'll pull off the bottom leaves here, but I leave plenty at the top, okay? Sage is another one of those plants, those herbs that are impossible to find at the grocery store, and if you do, it's literally like $5 for a little sprig of this, okay? So I like to just do this, and I'll put them here in my jar. All right, so here I've got 5 sprigs of sage here in my vase. So this is a really great way to kind of display your herbs, and it's just super simple, you know, 5 little sprigs here and put them in a jar. Now, what else I like to do after this is I like to add another herb, okay? So I've done rosemary before, but I like to add something that has a lot of aroma to it. So today we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add holy basil. Alrighty, so I'm adding my holy basil. The holy basil has a really strong aroma, so this is great because you can set it anywhere in your home and it'll smell up the whole room. It's absolutely beautiful. And what's really great about this too is that these will stay fresh in this in the water here for up to a week. So you can use it as a centerpiece, but then within that week or up to a week, then you can still pick them and use them as fresh herbs in any kind of like soups or cooking. Or you can also take them out, dry them, wrap them, and use them as like incense or sage sticks. Okay, I'm back to our dill. I'm picking some of this because we are making pickles, so these need to come with us. All right, moving around, this is more lemon balm. Typically how I pick my lemon balm when I'm picking it for tea is I will just take off the big leaves. This is a little bit more time consuming than it would be if you just picked them and dried them, but I prefer to do it this way because they continue to grow a lot quicker, I feel like. So I'll just go through and pick off the big leaves like this and then dry them and add them to teas. Now, a lot of herbs you can use fresh in teas if you'd like. Typically the idea is that fresh herbs it takes more fresh herbs to get the same potency than it would of dry. Less dry herbs are a little bit more concentrated, so you get a higher potency with the dry ones. Pause for cuteness. Hi. Hi. Alright, my basket is full, so I am not picking anything else to add to the basket, but I will walk you guys through what the rest we have. This here is spearmint that we have growing. I've got thyme here, chives, tons of basil. This is another lemon balm. More basil, and this I think is another holy basil. These are a surprise. I mean, I know what they are, but I wasn't expecting to get them. So this is borage. It's not obviously not looking too pretty right now. This is borage. So I've planted this a couple years ago, and I think it's just reseeded itself. I don't think it's actually coming back every year or overwintering. But how beautiful are those flowers? And you get such a color variety. This one's pink. So these you can pick and do teas with, or what I've done in the past is I picked them and then frozen them in ice trays with water, and you can use them as ice cubes with little flowers in them. They're so beautiful. All right, and then last but not least, I've got more thyme here. This thyme has completely taken over, covering the walkways. But this is about 3 years old, so the thyme has come back every year. And this is another oregano that has come back overwintered every single year as well. All right, we're gonna head out front because there is one more thing that I want to pick out here. So this is our Echinacea or Coneflower. You can see the bees are loving it. Oh, the sun is out. It's hot out here, you guys. We're gonna make this quick. But the Echinacea or Coneflower, this is really good tincture for tinctures. So I make tinctures out of it every single year. It's an immune booster. So I'm gonna go ahead and take quite a few heads off of this plant, but try and leave some for the bees. And we're gonna make a tincture out of it. All right, that is a pretty full basket. I think it's time to go in. Okay, so now that we're inside, out of the heat, it's time to process all this stuff. All right, we'll start off with the coriander because it's gonna be the easiest. So here's my little coriander jar. You can tell we are running low. Not bad, fill this up about halfway. This is good. I really don't use coriander that much, and if I do, I only use a sprinkle, and most of the time I use it for my soup, so this will hold us off for quite some time. Next is my favorite, one of my favorite kitchen tools. I don't know, they probably all end up being my favorite, but one of my favorite kitchen tools is my dehydrator. I am so avid this year about keeping this thing going non-stop, okay? So this is the main way that I now dehydrate or dry my herbs. It's just so much easier. It doesn't make a mess. It's not all over the place. So I'll show you guys my dehydrator. So this is our dehydrator. It's a Chefman. It's got, I think, 6 different trays to it, so it, you know, can hold quite a bit. So I'll show you guys how I load my herbs. We're going to start off with the marjoram. All right, so we've got our marjoram. I try to get them about this length. Now, when you are setting your herbs in your dehydrator, you want to make sure that they are not overlapping at all. So I kind of like to reverse them, so you can see that the head of the plant is on this side here and the head is down here. You can kind of fit more, kind of like how you would pack shoes into a shoebox. All right, so my tray is full. Usually I can fit about 6 full-length stalks on one tray, but a lot of these are much shorter. They're about, you know, 2-3 inches long, so I could fit a lot more. So I'm gonna go ahead and load them like this. You don't want them totally packed in here because you want each of the leaves to have enough airflow for it to be able to totally dry out. If anything's touching or overlapping each other, it's not going to dry out evenly. And slide it back in. I'll go ahead and I'll do it for the rest of the 6 trays we have here. All right, so once I've got my trays fully loaded, I did pick off my flowers. I'm just keeping the leaves. I'm gonna close my lid, and I usually stick with 10 hours, but I am gonna adjust the temperature. Take the temperature down to 112, 113 is the closest that mine gets to. So 113 for 10 hours. I usually do 2 cycles of that, so 20 hours at 113. Okay, now say that you don't have a dehydrator, you don't have the funds for a dehydrator, whatnot. Don't worry, you can do this very easily, many ways. Another way that you can do it is you can just tie a string around your herbs and find a place to hang them. So I'll show you kind of what we've got there. So this is our going down into the dungeon. But an example here is you can see how I just tied a string around my herbs and then I hung them from this coat rack. Very simple, right? So this is some time that I have going. I just tied a light tie around the herbs and then hung a little loop and just hung them here from our coat rack. Another way that I dry my herbs, as you can see up here, I've got this little shelf. I'll set them up there for a couple days if it's a small batch. Let them dry and then I can process them that way. And then this is where I keep all of my stored dried herbs. Tyler made this for me. I will probably do a processing dried herbs video at some point, but not this video, not today. All right, dill is going to be reserved for these pickles. All right, so what we've got left here is our coneflower or echinacea. I'm going to show you guys a quick way to make an echinacea tincture. All right, so to do the echinacea tincture, Tyler is with us. It's really simple, okay? So we're just going to take a clean jar. This came out of the dishwasher this morning. A clean jar, preferably wide mouth, because you do want to be able to like manage getting stuff in there. And some alcohol. Tito's is something that is regularly available in this house, so that's what we're going with. All right, so we're going to take our echinacea flowers and we're just going to put them in our jar. You want to get as many in there as possible. There doesn't have to be any method to the madness. I am just using the flower heads, but you can quite frankly use the entire plant. There's nothing against doing that as well. The heads were just what I grabbed. So I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, I might have just enough. All right, perfect. I did have just enough. Pack them in there, and then you're gonna pour the alcohol over them so that it covers them entirely. All right, so I got it nice and covered. It's very full here, okay. And then you just wanna cover it with something. We have one of these little fermenting lids. You just wanna cover it. You can put a regular lid on it. You just wanna cover it so that the oxygen can't get in. And you wanna let that sit for a few months. It can probably sit for up to a year, to be honest with you. And then you can start sipping from it. So this is what it looks like when it's in the jar. Then usually after this is sat for a while, the water's going to turn like a darker color, so you'll know when it's done. Then you can strain everything out. You want to run it through a cheesecloth, strain it out really, really well. And then I like to put them in these little jars here. So you want something that's dark so that sunlight can't get in. And I like the little eyedropper. It's not necessary, but it just makes it easy to add it to, I like to drink it in my teas. So this is going to be an immune booster for you. If you're feeling under the weather or whatever, it's going to help give you a little kickstart. So yeah, quick and easy stuff from the garden today. That's it for today. Really quick, simple steps to how you can harvest and use your herbs in your garden all the time, year round. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.